Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining me. It is Sunday. Yes, the last day of the weekend. Thank you so very much. Hope you all had a great weekend and have a blessed week, safe week. God bless all of you. This is a recap of the trial pertaining to Robert Kelly. It is a federal trial, the U.S. versus Robert Sylvester Kelly, taking place in Brooklyn, New York. I'm going to bring you a recap of the events that took place last week and those who testified and said information. And then I will play audio from said commentary from ABC News of a talent agent who worked with Robert Kelly over the years, and she will be in a said interview that took place earlier in the week. Vulture is the source. The worst things that happened at the R. Kelly trial this week. We have now come out of week 5. The prosecution has rested allegedly, and the defense will start their motion tomorrow to bring forth the information in their version of what's going on with Robert Kelly. Prosecutors in R. Kelly's Brooklyn federal court trial are nearly done with the racketeering and sex crimes against the R&B singer. They have called 45 witnesses, 11 of whom are abuse accusers. Their last witness, psychologist Dawn Hughes, took the stand Friday afternoon to explain that victims of interpersonal violence may stay with and go back to their abusers, and that returning to one's abuser doesn't negate victimhood. Prosecutors finished their direct questioning of Hughes. The defense will start cross-examination Monday morning, and that is tomorrow. Although today marks the near conclusion of the prosecution's case, it already feels wrapped up following a 5th week of testimony that seemed largely repetitive. Witnesses backed up what prior witnesses had to say, including previous testimony about Kelly's mercurial and mean-spirited behavior, both as a boss and generally as a person. The mood of the ending was more confetti cracker pop than the proper bang one might expect from the closing arguments in the near future. There were a few exceptions. R. Kelly allegedly threatened a colleague so she would back him during a lawsuit, warning her, generally in these situations, people come up missing, the woman testified Friday. The colleague, Cheryl Mack, said that she met Kelly in 2005. Mack, then a talent manager, was in Miami to attend events surrounding MTV's Video Music Awards. She and a client were at a restaurant when a man approached them and said, "You look pretty important." Mack responded that she was a talent agent. She told the man that her client, age not known, could sing, and the man said, "I want to introduce you to someone." He eventually led them to the back of the restaurant. That was when he introduced my artist to Mr. Kelly, Mack said. She sang a song for Mr. Kelly. She did amazing. Kelly asked the artist to sing another song and then another. "Let me help you," Kelly told them. He gave Mack his phone number and told her, "Just keep trying until I answer." He said she was amazing, Mack recalled. Mack called Kelly and she and her client traveled to Chicago. They went to Kelly's home studio at his Olympia Fields, Illinois property. Her client wound up singing with Kelly on his album, and Mack testified that she introduced more of her clients to Kelly over the years. One of those clients was Precious, an R&B singer from Atlanta. Mack introduced Precious to Kelly in 2009 when she was 17 years old. "I had a discussion with him about her talent. She is talented. Would you be interested in meeting her?" He agreed. Mack, Precious, and the teen's mom traveled from Atlanta to Chicago as Kelly had agreed to let them use one of the studios at his Olympia Fields home. One of Kelly's associates paid for their trip. Precious ended up returning to Chicago and stayed at a hotel near Kelly's house, Mack said. Here is a clip of what was said in this commentary. "Everything happened so fast. He told me that she was trying to file a lawsuit and I needed to pick a team." Prosecutors asked Mack whether Precious stopped working for Kelly and whether it was an abrupt split. "Yes," Mack said. "Did you speak to the defendant about why Precious had left?" Prosecutors asked. "It was all of a sudden. He told me that I needed to come to Chicago," she said. "Everything happened so fast. He told me that she was trying to file a lawsuit and I needed to pick a team." Mack traveled to Kelly's Olympia Fields home. He explained to me that Precious had filed a lawsuit and it was right around him going to the World Cup that it was important, and he told me I need to pick a team. Kelly performed at the World Cup in South Africa in 2010, which puts his interactions with Precious sometime between her initial work with him in 2009 and around 2010. Generally, in these situations, people come up missing, Kelly allegedly remarked. I took it as a threat, Mac testified. Mac learned that the suit was something along the lines of sexual harassment. They ultimately moved their discussion into a room in Kelly's home with a pool table. After some time, Kelly's former studio manager, Tom Arnold, directed Mac to a car. She got in but didn't know where they were going. Arnold drove her to the office of Kelly's then attorney, Ed Jensen. There was an affidavit on the table, which they asked her to sign. She said she barely glanced at the questions, but remember one was, did I ever see Mr. Kelly give Precious alcohol? And another was, did I ever see them having sex? Mac didn't remember whether she circled yes or no to the questions on the affidavit, but said she did sign it. After she signed the paperwork, Arnold took her to the airport. Mac and Kelly started working together again in 2013. Mac's then boss, talent manager Devin Stevens, wanted to do something different. Stevens thought they could get Kelly off the bench performing more frequently than he was. Mac began working with Kelly through her agency, but Kelly quickly hired Mac to be his executive assistant. Mac says she coordinated Kelly's travel and that of his entourage, including the singer's girlfriends. Mac met Jane, who testified that Kelly first sexually abused her at age 17. In April 2015, Jane left Kelly in fall of 2019. In July 2015, after his concert at a Connecticut casino, Mac said that she, Kelly's stylist Cash Howard, and Jane were in Kelly's dressing room with him. She saw Jane sidle up to Kelly, who was reclining on an ottoman. I just saw her move in closer. That was kind of my cue to leave, she said. Mac said she saw Jane move her head down. When asked by the judge whether this was near Kelly's lap, Mac said, in that area. That was my exit. I was very uncomfortable. That wasn't my business. The next day, Mac was at a McDonald's with Kelly and members of his entourage. He started berating her for spoiling his stylist's surprise birthday party, even pounding the table. For whatever reason, he just started cursing me and ultimately said, I need to apologize to the guests, Mac said, referring to Jane. And in that moment, I quit. Earlier this week, a woman who accused R. Kelly of sexual abuse as an underage teenager claimed that she saw him performing oral sex on Aaliyah when the singer was a young teen. The accuser said Monday she witnessed this in 1992 or 93 when Aaliyah would have been only 13, 14 at the time of the alleged sexual abuse. Kelly illegally wed Aaliyah when she was just 15 and he was 27, according to trial testimony. Angela, who was the 10th accuser to take the stand, said she met Kelly in 1991 when she was about 14, 15 years old. Tiffany, Angela's then friend, brought her to a party at Kelly's apartment in Chicago. Kelly and several of his pals were present, as well as some of the other younger females, and they were all joking around in the living room. At some point, Kelly went into another room. One after one, the young ladies would eventually join Kelly. When Angela entered the room, there were 3 other young ladies in there. One was taking off her clothes and another was removing her shirt. He asked me to climb on top of him, Angela stated. I paused for a moment. I was a little startled, but Angela ultimately decided to do as he asked me to do. The defendant asked me to straddle him and to ride him. I asked if I could grab a condom, she testified, remarking that she was 14, 15 years old at the time. Kelly claimed he didn't have a condom. Angela told him that she had one. After that, I proceeded to put the condom on the gentleman and straddle him. Kelly penetrated Angela. At one point, Kelly purportedly touched one of the other female's breasts and placed his mouth on another's, touching the third female's genital area. Before Angela left Kelly's apartment, he invited her and Tiffany back. Angela claimed she hung out with Kelly every day for quite a few years. They had multiple sexual encounters when she was a minor, she alleged. Angela, who was an aspiring singer at the time, claimed that she left high school after Kelly told her that she could either attend school or perform. She was a backup dancer on one of Kelly's tours sometime around 92, 93. She claimed to have met Aaliyah in 92, with Kelly telling her the girl was the next up-and-coming artist, the next hottest wave out of Detroit. He introduced Angela to Aaliyah on the artist's 13th birthday. Aaliyah was born January 16, 1979. He told her that we're going to be her background singers as well, Angela said. He told her that we're going to be her street vibe and that we were going to be here to be her friends as well. Angela alleged that she saw Kelly sexually abuse Aaliyah on his tour bus. Angela said that she and another young female were goofing around. Kelly, she said, enjoyed practical jokes. So Angela and the other female decided to toss some water on him. They went to the back of his tour bus to the bedroom. Angela cracked open the door. I saw Robert and Aaliyah in a sexual situation, she alleged. It appeared that he had his head in between her legs and was giving her oral sex. Aaliyah was sitting upright on a seat. Kelly, she said, was on his knees. I closed the door abruptly and pushed the girl behind me away from the door. Angela stated that she did not discuss this with Kelly. She claimed to have stopped working for him in the mid-1990s. The second male accuser to testify was Alex, said that he met Kelly in 2007 at the age of 16. Alex said that a then friend Lewis introduced him to Kelly. Lewis was the first male accuser to publicly allege that Kelly sexually abused him. He claims this abuse started at age 17. Alex said his first sexual encounter with Kelly took place when Alex was 20 years old. He claimed that Kelly pressured him into unwanted sexual activity, such as encounters with women while the R&B singer watched. Alex said that he also had sexual encounters with Kelly. The prosecution also presented recordings to jurors on Wednesday, but they were shown and published only to jurors and parties in the case. Neither the press nor the public watching Kelly's trial in a viewing room were able to see or hear any of it. A court filing submitted Tuesday indicated that prosecutors planned on playing recordings that show the defendant physically and verbally abusing and threatening females, but it's not known with certainty what exactly jurors saw or heard, since nobody outside the courtroom could see or hear them. Kelly did not put on his headphones while these recordings were played. These headphones would have enabled him to hear the recordings. But of course, a woman in one of these recordings, referred to as Jane Doe number 20 in court filings, was going to testify, but prosecutors decided against it because of her anxiety. They wrote that after the government played the audio recording for Jane Doe number 20, and Jane Doe number 20 traveled to New York to prepare for her testimony, she started to have panic attacks and appeared to have an emotional breakdown. For the sake of her mental health, the government advised Jane Doe number 20 that it would not call her as a witness at the trial. This post has been updated throughout. So the recap is a talent agent has testified, a psychologist has testified, and another young lady by the name of Angela has testified pertaining to Mr. Kelly. And I will, the vulture is the source if you need verification for the said information. None of this is shocking to me, what I've just repeated. It just goes to show you he's been a dirty bird from day one, and he enjoys soliciting children for sex. He enjoys also berating men, women, children, because he could. The said information I'm about to play is from Good Morning America. Woo. 1 second, please. Thank you all for joining me. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope you all are well out there. Okay. Let's get this together.
Bluetooth connected.
Thank you.
At U.S. Money Reserve, we've helped hundreds of thousands choose the best precious metals for their retirement.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We saw inside Kelly's home, including his living girlfriends and female visitors. So here's Michael Strahan. If the bombshell trial making headlines, R&B superstar R. Kelly in federal court. At various points over the span of nearly 2 decades, allegations from sex trafficking to child pornography have swirled around R. Kelly, but he has not been found guilty of any crimes. The singer, now back in court and claiming his innocence again, pleading not guilty to multiple federal charges, including racketeering and sexual abuse.
There were women always coming at him.
Diana Copeland served as R. Kelly's executive assistant off and on for 16 years, taking the stand, sharing details from her experience working in his homes. I believe I can fly. At the time, Kelly was one of the biggest selling male artists and music producers. His hit song, I Believe I Can Fly, winning him 3 Grammys. And what was it like working for him?
It was incredible. One day I'm hugging Whitney Houston, then the next day I might be on the set of Lady Gaga.
How would you describe him as a person?
He's charismatic, and I think that's one of the reasons why people kind of say he has 2 personalities, because when you meet him, he has, he's a very personable person. If you see him angry, that's a whole different person.
Inside Kelly's homes where she worked, Copeland said there were rules, like guests were not allowed to roam the homes. Where did they all stay?
Yeah, he would have live-in girlfriends. They had their own rooms. Guests would just come, maybe sit in the studio with him. But the live-in girlfriends, they had their own rooms.
There were moments where they were restricted, though, of moving around the house. They had to ask for permission to leave their rooms and move around the house. Can you tell me about that?
He had 3 properties. In those properties, there was a certain decorum that was expected. He pretty much didn't want not just the girls to move around, but he didn't want anybody to be able to just roam his house, like a museum. So if they were in their rooms or wherever they were, permission was required to
leave your room. So you're a living girlfriend, you're a guest in the house,
mm-hmm.
and you go to your room and you stay there until you're told that you can leave your room.
Well, I'm talking about the main part of the house, right? So nobody is able to roam. As far as in their room, I don't know that they had to ask permission.
But if they wanted to leave their room, they had to be escorted. Is that how it worked? You had to ask permission to leave your room?
No, I don't know of permission to leave your room, but I do know, I don't think anybody was escorted from their room.
So you were never asked to walk someone from one room to the other?
Oh, never.
As executive assistant, Copeland says she had freedoms other guests didn't, but she said everyone was required to knock on the wall when entering a space to announce their presence. Copeland says that rule was put in place by R. Kelly's ex-wife, but stayed in place after their divorce. Why were you told to do that?
When I first started working for Robert, I asked that very same question because I had noticed that, his ex-wife would do that. So I did ask him that question. And he said, listen, I have people in my house 24 hours a day. I have workers in my house 24 hours a day. The least that everybody can do is just not to let me know you're there. And so I understood that.
That didn't come across as a little odd?
No, it didn't.
Really?
It did not. I mean, I know that celebrities have unique rules based on their likes and their dislikes. He doesn't like mustard on his hamburger. That's odd to me too. But I did it. This is his home. He wants us to knock. It wasn't a big deal for me.
Copeland says she was asked to accompany his guests on outings. She says during shopping trips, the women often did interact with male salespeople.
They asked me during the trial, did you notice their reaction with males? And I did. They didn't want to speak to the males. In fact, sometimes they would ask me to interact with the males.
So they didn't want to speak to the males, or were they told not to speak to the males?
Well, that piece I can't speak to because I don't know if they were told, but I would say that you can pretty much surmise that that was probably the case.
She also said Kelly made her call multiple Ubers for the girls if the drivers were male.
Robert eventually realized that Uber drivers, you can't pick the gender. So he eventually stopped asking about that.
She says while outside a fitness center waiting for Kelly to work out, she was in a van with multiple women, and one of his girlfriends needed to use the restroom, but she says refused to go because she did not have permission from Kelly. Was she afraid of him? Was she afraid that if she removed or went to the bathroom that she would be in trouble?
That's, a question, I guess, for her. But what I can say is this. There are certain rules that are put in place for safety, because when he gets out of the vehicle, he's highly recognizable. So now whomever gets out of that vehicle, there's a spotlight, a target on that person.
The knocking on the wall, the, no speaking to men, the texting to use the bathroom, none of that raised an alarm for you. You didn't think any of that was a little strange.
I know Robert, the family man, the businessman, but his personal life is Robert's personal life. So my job stops at the threshold of his bedroom door.
Copeland says multiple live-in girlfriends and other women would visit his homes, and one of her jobs was making their travel arrangements. In court, Kelly has been accused by some women of traveling them across state lines when they were underage. Another alleged victim telling the jury she was even held captive for several days. Diana maintains she didn't see anything like that. When you're making travel arrangements, of course, you need the date of birth. So how old were these women?
They ranged in ages, but none of them were underage.
So no minors?
No minors.
No one under 18?
No one under 18. In fact, when this case came up, I'm reading that women are locked up and, kidnapped and these things of that nature. And that's not what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing anybody that's trying to leave or any locked doors.
And while you worked for him, he was up on 21 counts of child pornography. Did that ever concern you?
When he was acquitted, the world immediately understood that he was acquitted.
In 2018, Copeland was named in a civil complaint pending against R. Kelly. The accuser saying Kelly used Copeland to enforce his rules. Allegations he denies. She alleges that Kelly locked her in secluded areas, rooms, studios, motor vehicles, as punishment, and that he would instruct you to, quote, stand guard outside the door. What is your response to that?
So I can't speak to her experience with him, but I can speak to the piece that mentions me. That is absolutely impossible. Anybody that knows me knows that I would never do anything like that.
While testifying, Copeland was asked about an incident where Kelly confronted her about letting a woman, quote, escape. So when he said escape, what went through your mind?
There was an employee that was trying to start trouble. She calls him. She says, Diana let Anna escape. And he comes to me and tells me exactly what that person says. And I said to him, that was concerning to me. Like, why would you say that? But that, I want to make very clear, those were words that he was using from someone who had called him.
Because if someone used the word escape, I think somebody's been held against their will. And
Absolutely.
found a way to escape and get out from it.
Yes. He's never asked me or anyone else that I know to make sure, women don't leave. Mm-hmm. Every woman that's left has walked right out the door.
Copeland testified on cross-examination at trial that the year she worked for him, Kelly never tried to prevent someone from leaving or asked her or anyone else to try to prevent someone from leaving. During the latest trial, Copeland herself was named as someone who took part in the alleged mistreatment, but denies it. And one woman testified that you took her for an STD test. Was that part of your duties? Is that something that happened?
That I don't even recall that. So
she even said that you withheld the results from her.
First of all, let me just say, they don't give results to other people. But I have no recollection of it.
Did he ever ask you to recruit women for him?
He's never asked me, but at the time, I'm only saying that he was R. Kelly, a mega superstar. He needed no help. I mean, absolutely no help to recruit women or to get women.
Is there anything that you think you could have, would have done differently?
Looking back, I think that I would have done things the same way I did. I don't think that anything that I did was wrong or And I also don't think that anything that I could have done would have changed what Robert did. I can only control Diana.
Hi, everyone. Joe Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the.
Okay, that's the said information. Woo, Miss Copeland is full of crap. She obviously is starstruck and wants to be one of those people to continuously uphold Robert Kelly. If you need a source, this was ABC News. Mr. Strahan was interviewing Miss Copeland. See, where she messed herself up is when she finished the statement with, I don't have any control over what he did. Well, allegedly he didn't do anything. These people are lying. So he didn't do anything. So you messed yourself up right there. When you went to work for him, I believe this is the same lady, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm making a mistake, I'll retract it. Was working for a company and then went on to work for Mr. Kelly. And then there was one girl who was a client that she recommended from Atlanta or so that ended up suing him, and she had to go sign a clause. The one where I just read you where she was saying she don't remember if she signed yes or no on that paperwork. That was your cue to quit working for R. Kelly right then. Because why would you want to go work for somebody who you just recommended talent to work with him, and now they're calling you into a lawyer's office to sign affidavits? That should have been your cue that something's not right. And now you're saying that the woman is lying on you, that you didn't stand outside a door. You also saying you took them on shopping trips and you saw the one or two or whomever said, I can't speak to him. So you didn't find that odd, a grown woman asking you to correspond with a male clerk. You didn't find that strange. You didn't notice nobody was locked in rooms. Everybody was able to roam and go where they wanted to freely. And yes, I understand in a person's house, and they have a lot of people in their house, they don't want people just running all over their house, going in and out of rooms, doing things, because that is how things can happen, get broke, stolen, which is soever. But we know R. Kelly had other ulterior reasons for why he didn't want people roaming in the house. This lady is a fraud, and she's riding on the gravy train, probably hoping she can get something out the deal by still staying in cahoots with this man. But allegedly, he doesn't have any money. Allegedly, don't even own the rights to some of his music or all of it. So what I'm trying to figure out, what are you about to get out the deal besides writing a book? That's it. My Time with R. Kelly. Like I said, when one of your clients told you, or you found out from Mr. Kelly that she was filing a lawsuit and you went in that law office to sign paperwork about what you saw and didn't see, he didn't give her no alcohol. You should have known what time of day it was right then. Because why would somebody have that in an affidavit? Did you see Mr. Kelly give her alcohol? Did you see him flirt with her, have sex with her? Come on now. And the testimony about Aaliyah having oral sex with Mr. Kelly back in the bus or whatever, that's bad. Horrible. That means the child was 13, 14. He met her at 13. Now we have a alleged eyewitness saying she saw them engaging in sexual activity. Well, we know they were having sex because he married her. And 9 times out of 10, he was having sex with a girl before he married her. A child, mind you. He married a child. So it's rape. Rape the child. This is a sick case of a man who just did what he wanted to do, like so many men and women who have been afforded the opportunity to be sadists, and people stand idly by and not do anything about it. And now we have this crazy heifer here riding the ride to the very end, and she is the one I guess they're talking about may have saved R. Kelly. I don't think she saved him because there's too many people that have testified to the contrary. You may only have 2 to 3 witnesses that may have shown Mr. Kelly favor in this trial thus far with what the prosecution has brought forth. And the fact that Robert Kelly didn't even listen to the recordings of himself berating the women, men, whomever, shows you he's complicit, and he did that because he's been sitting in trial, taking notes, as they've said, jotting down things on paper. So why is the one time during week 5 Mr. R. Kelly does not put on headphones pertaining to recordings of himself fussing and cussing, raising hell, because he knows that's him on those tapes, and he know he did that. And as she said, he could be so nice, charismatic, but then the other side is like, oh, well, not so nice, because that's who he is. He's a chameleon. He puts on a show in public. He puts on a show to meet and greet. But then when he gets behind closed doors where nobody else is listening, outsiders, he goes ham. And it's obvious he mistreats everybody. He doesn't even pick and choose. He's going off on men, women, everybody, whether he's having sex with you or not. You work for him or not. He has no respect for people. Let's clarify that. Robert Kelly has no respect for people because Robert Kelly does not respect himself. He never has and never will. He's a product of child molestation, rape, and then he goes on to become an abuser himself. And I don't believe he has any remorse. He will never have any remorse. If he does, he'll probably be old and gray, and it won't even matter to the victims or anybody else because nobody will care, except for the groupies that want to chase him behind an old, shriveled up man. He's despicable. He's despicable. And you now have people testifying that he was rude and nasty to them. So now you're going to say what? Those people are lying too that work for him, that didn't have sexual relations. He was nasty and rude, docking their pay. And as Mr. Strahan said, the word escape should tell you something. Why would anyone use that word in a conversation? You let her escape. Because that's what he said. This lady is playing crazy on this morning show. And you can hear the pausing in her answers because she's guilty. Like all the other ones that aided Mr. Kelly. She's guilty too. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Thank you all for joining me. God bless all of you. Please stay safe this week. When I get an update, I will bring it. Tomorrow, the case against Mr. Kelly in Brooklyn, New York, U.S. versus Robert Sylvester Kelly, will resume in federal court tomorrow in Brooklyn, New York. When that information is uploaded to proper content, I will bring an update. I want to thank you all for joining me. God bless all of you. Stay safe. This is Everyday Shenanigans.